lash extension theory examination, the theory and the written part, practical part, are very similar. I'll just kind of go in detail over the theory and we'll kind of just glaze over the written practical. So safety and infection control. So when the test is referring to the environment, they're talking about the salon, okay? Not like trees and water and ocean. Important here is when they're testing about the board of cosmetology. So what comes up a lot is microblading. Are you guys all familiar with microblading? That's another thing that's kind of like not enough information is out there. Microblading is regulated in the state of Minnesota. Okay, so microblading is regulated in the state of Minnesota, but not by the Board of Cosmetology. Microblading is a tattoo license. It is regulated by the Department of Health. So when the question pops up, and it pops up all the time, it literally pops up, I think everybody gets the same question. Which of these is not regulated? And the answer is microblading, because it's not regulated by the Board of Cosmetology.
And it will say regulated.
Yeah, it'll say not regulated. But in the state of Minnesota, it is regulated. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And that's something to watch for too when you take your PSIs. I am a skimmer, so I read my questions really fast. But those words, like which of these are not, all of these but, those words pop up in there. So make sure you're reading the question and you're comprehending what it's asking you before you answer. Okay? Did you find that happen when you took your nail PSIs? Yeah.
A whole lot of that stuff.
Yeah, where you just are like, wait, what is it really asking? Because you have to kind of see what it.
What's the question?
Yeah, exactly. Because me, I'm a skimmer, so I'm like, oh yeah, and then I would just get it wrong. Okay. Protective coverings. So your protective coverings would be things considered draping or gloves. Water temperature. Water temperature must be warm when cleaning your tools or implements. So another thing as well, they are looking for what the best answer is. Okay. So like for me, I wash my dishes and I'm a hot water person. Like my dishes are scalding. Like when I take a shower, like my whole bathroom is steamed up, right? I love hot water. But when you're washing your tools, you can definitely use hot water, but they're looking for the best answer. So the best answer is actually warm. So there might be a couple of correct answers, but the best answer is warm, okay? Chemical labeling and storage, and I can't tell you enough, always, no matter what, when you're in question, follow manufacturer's directions on how to store chemicals and even with their labeling. With anything that is a chemical, you want it locked away in your salon, no matter what. You never want it leaving out, whether it be Windex, whether it be anything. Chemicals always locked away, okay? Store disinfected tools and implements in a clean covered container until needed. So whenever you have tools out, that is a big no-no. So Olivia, I don't know if you have them in your case, but that's exactly where you want them. In your case or put away. You never want them to just leave them out. That's considered contamination. The safety data sheet. The safety data sheet includes information such as properties of each chemical. So that is basically if you ever have purchased like cleaning solvent and you open the box and it has like directions that nobody ever reads, that's the chemical breakdown. That's the safety data sheet. You don't necessarily have to have it in your salon, but you have to know like where to get that information. Again, it's mainly because if somebody like swallows it or something happens, you know what to do, okay? So the SDS, the safety data sheet. Patch test or allergy test, basically a few extensions to the client's natural eyelashes. If there's no reaction after 24 hours, it's safe to proceed. Nobody ever gets this. Because when you want your lashes done, you want them done today. You don't want to come in here today, get 3 lashes, go home, get another, and then wait till see what happens. On your client consent form, you can write, I waive the right to a patch test, and then have your client initial on there. And you just never, and then too, I wouldn't say nobody, if you have somebody that's kind of iffy, or have had like a really bad experience with their former tech or whatever the case may be, then by all means, to reassure them, have them come in for a patch test. But for the most part, I think in all the years of Regina doing lashes, we've only had like one person who had a real chemical reaction. The rest was more coming from other places or other techs that didn't isolate properly or apply properly, okay? But yeah, if you want anything to make your client comfortable, that's what a patch test is. If you put it on you must offer it, so if you put it on your consent form, that's usually good, okay? Prohibited materials, this is about items that are prohibited in the salon. For you guys, you don't use any product with MMA, but nail techs, we do, or we used to. So you are not allowed to have any products with MMA in it, in your salon. That is a prohibited material. Another thing too that is more of a nail tech thing is the cradle blade. I don't know if you guys ever saw that, but it looks almost like a carrot peeler. It has a razor on it. And people used to use that back in the day to do pedicures and like shave dead skin off of people's feet. That is also prohibited in salons. So those two things are prohibited materials. What's more important is MMA. And MMA is, again, back in the day, if you walked into a nail salon, you could really, really smell that nail fume. That's a big part, that was MMA. And it's no longer allowed in salons, okay?
People still use it, even though you're not supposed to, but.
People do still use it,
yeah.
But that's okay if they want to use it at their home for personal use. Like, the same with the cradle blade. People still use that, but.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I'm scared of it too. I've seen somebody get cut real bad with that, so I would never use it anyway, but yeah, that would be what it is. So single-use equipment and materials. A good rule of thumb for me, and I love word association, is M for metal, M for multiple use. So typically anything that's metal, you can use multiple times because you can sanitize and disinfect it, okay? Most things that are porous are one-time use, toss it. If it's questionable, toss it. Try to get disposable items just because, especially now with COVID, it's just easier to start fresh than to have to clean and reuse, right? So anything, to me, M, metal, M, you can use that multiple times, okay? Skin cutting equipment, again, your license will cover being a lash extension technician. You really shouldn't have anything that's cutting anybody's skin in your salon. So safety agencies, it's good for you to know what OSHA is. It's the Occupational Safety and Health Agency, and most of you, if you work in like corporate jobs, you know what that is. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, I think people have been talking about that a lot lately, especially with vaccines and information there. But what's important for us to know is EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Environmental Protection Agency, why that's important is because they are the ones that register and approve our disinfectant. So EPA registered, approved disinfectant. That's all we're able to use to disinfect. Okay, if it's not EPA registered, we cannot use it, it doesn't count. Infectious diseases and pathogens. Infectious disease is caused by pathogenic or harmful organisms that enter the body. An infectious disease may be spread from one person to another person. What is important to know about infectious diseases is that we can stop the spread. And it is our job, in order to keep a clean and sanitary working environment, to stop the spread of any infectious disease. Not just COVID, but anything else that may be floating around in there. And we do that by protecting ourselves and making sure we sanitize, okay? Pathogens. Pathogens are pathogenic bacteria and harmful microorganisms that can cause disease or infections when they invade the body. That's why salons, spas, medical facilities, and schools must maintain strict standards for cleaning and disinfecting at all times to prevent the spread. So I think that's pretty much, everybody knows what's going on now, especially with COVID. It's kind of really taught us, opened our eyes to that, right? So, sanitation and disinfection. So a lot of people get sanitation and disinfection confused, again, with my word association. Sanitation starts with S. So does soap. Soap, sanitize. Okay, so when you're washing your hands with water and soap, that's sanitizing. When you go to put your tools in an EPA registered disinfectant, that's disinfecting. Make sense? So again, S, sanitize, S, soap. That's like a cleanser. But to actually disinfect, that's the next step in using a registered, EPA registered disinfectant. Okay? That brings us on to levels of decontamination. There's two methods of decontamination. We use method 1. You know why? Because we are number 1, okay? That's the best way to remember it. I know it sounds cheesy, but I promise you, you will, when it pops up, you're gonna be like, Marina said we are number 1, because we are, okay? So decontamination method 1 is exactly what we do, ladies. We clean our tools, then we disinfect them with an EPA registered disinfectant, right? Decontamination method 2, do you guys have tattoos or piercings?
Yeah.
It's the autoclave. That's decontamination method 2. So what they do is they clean and then they sterilize. So like tattoo needles or piercing tools or
Cuticle nippers.
not necessarily cuticle nippers. So sterilizing kills spores. So they no longer want us to, when did you get your license? A while ago?
17.
Oh, okay. So that used to be a thing for nail salons where you would actually have to sterilize your tools. Now they don't. They just want us to use the disinfectant.
Right.
Yeah. So more along the lines of like scalpels, like people who like perform surgeries, and things that like really bring on blood. I guess that would be the best way to describe it. Okay. So that is decontamination method 2, which is cleaning and then sterilizing. We don't do that. So we use method 1 because we are number 1. Again, with cleansers and disinfectants, cleansers are like soaps and detergents that clean the skin. A disinfectant is an actual chemical product that destroys all bacteria, fungi, and viruses, but not spores. So the sterilizing is what kills the spores. Okay? But I just want to kind of review from start to finish how we sanitize and disinfect our tools. So you guys walk through it with me. When you're done with your client, you use acetone on cotton and you remove the residual glue, any residue or anything like that. Then you're gonna go to the sink. Here you're gonna use the brush and soap and scrub, right? Then you're gonna rinse off. Yep, you're gonna sanitize it. Very good. Then you're gonna rinse off that soap, and then you're gonna stick it in an EPA registered disinfectant. And you're gonna follow the manufacturer's directions on how long it sits there. So again, for us, we use Barbicide. It is a brand. Barbicide says 10 minutes. That's what we do. Okay. Different brands have different directions. Again, we always go by the manufacturer's directions. Okay. After the appropriate amount of time, we take those tools out and we rinse them. The chemical is usually very strong. If you leave your tools in there, they will rust. Okay. So make sure you rinse them. Again, warm water, rinse it off, pat it to dry, and then back in a clean closed container. And for us, here, we just label everything. We just love to label everything. And it's just better that way. And I promise you, when you get inspected, it's easier to just like show the inspector, like, these are clean, these are whatever, just easier. So clean covered container, make sure that's all good, and then you're done.
When you rinse it, like after it's finishing in the sedation, do you need to rinse it with soap or just water?
Just water,
Okay.
just water. Because you've already gone through the sanitation process, now it's disinfected, and you just wanna rinse off that disinfectant. Okay? Equipment, same thing. You want to follow the procedure recommended by the disinfectant manufacturer as well as the equipment manufacturer on how to clean and disinfect properly. I'm a nail tech, I love acetone. I use acetone on everything to clean everything. But acetone on leather, not a good idea, right? So we always have to follow the manufacturer's directions on what and how to use these chemicals. Work surfaces, same thing. Before beginning every client surface, all work surfaces must be cleaned and disinfected. Be sure to clean treatment beds, counters, trays, sinks, tables, products, any other points of contact that you may have touched after having exposure to a client's skin. Clean door knobs and handles daily to reduce transferring germs to your hands. Continue to wash your hands routinely after every service and task. So I'm gonna go into cross-contamination just a little bit here. I don't know if you guys know this. I hold a permanent makeup license, so I teach microblading, I teach tattooing, cosmetic tattooing as well. Cross-contamination is important, and I don't think people don't touch base on it enough. People are like, oh, if I wear gloves, I'm fine, like whatever, and I can touch everything in the world. No, because you're actually spreading those germs, right? So let's say you're doing a client, and so Molly, you're doing my lashes, and I have a sty. You are working with my eyes, and you touch the lamp, right, to brighten the light. Then you come back, you finish working on me, and then you touch the lamp again to turn it off, right? You touch my sty, you touch the lamp. Then I leave, I love my lashes, I leave, and in comes Olivia. Olivia lays down on your treatment bed, and you touch the lamp, and then you touch her eye. That is cross-contamination. You're spreading the sty. So we have to be very mindful that we're cleaning all high treatment any high areas that we touch that we don't think of, and make sure that everything's nice and clean and reset for each person. Here we use everything disposable, but if you use towels, make sure each client gets a fresh towel as well. You want to take that towel and you want to throw it away. Why this is important and why I always share the same story. I'm nosy, right? So when you have clients, they tell you their whole entire life story, you guys, and it's just like, you get so, like, I don't even watch like reality TV because my clients' stories are like so like interesting. So I had this client who came to me, and this was actually right before COVID, and she comes in regularly to get touch-ups for her eyebrows microblading. And if you guys know what microblading is, it's literally like cutting slits into people's eyes, and there's blood. She comes in, she tells me the story about how she thinks her boyfriend's cheating on her. So I'm working on her eyebrows, and of course I'm listening, and I'm like, okay, so listening to all the tea, like what happened, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, I think he might have HIV.
Girl.
Exactly. And
Cut him off, girl. Call the police.
That too. So while my heart breaks for her, I'm like sitting here, well, what does that mean for me?
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting here and doing your eyebrows. You got blood, open, cut. And I always wore a mask before COVID anyways. I froze. I literally froze, and I thought to myself, like, well, what are you doing here? Well, you have to be very mindful, and obviously, being a lash tech, you hopefully don't make your clients bleed, right? But you have to be mindful of cross-contamination and how very, very important it is. We have the responsibility with our license to control that environment, okay? So that's why I like to share that story, because you really never know. When there is an exposure, and again, hopefully you won't have this issue, but this is important for you to know on the test. If there is a blood spill or somebody has a bodily fluid, like let's say I went partying, I was hungover, you're doing my lashes, I roll over and I just throw up, right? You have to know that is a bodily fluid exposure and how to clean it up. So when you get into your own shops, everybody should have a very heavy duty first aid kit, okay? In that first aid kit, there's gonna be stickers that say biohazard. I don't know if you guys have seen that. There's like a eye wash in there, which is good for you guys as lash techs in case you ever need it. Stickers, eye wash, there's gloves, all sorts of good stuff. So let's say I come in, April, I'm telling you, I had a wild time in a party last night, blah, 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 whatever, and all of a sudden I just roll over and just puke all over the floor. First things first, protect yourself. Go get a pair of gloves. Come over, you're gonna clean that mess up with a single-use item, unless you make me clean it up. But you're gonna clean it up with a disposable item like a paper towel. Use it one time. Don't use towels that you would wash, okay? One time use, clean it up with paper towels, and then you're gonna use an EPA registered disinfectant to spray and clean it really good. Then you're gonna put it in a bag. Then you're actually gonna put it in another bag and slap a biohazard sticker on there. For you to know these steps, hopefully it'll never happen to you. But again, first step, protect yourself, put gloves on, single-use item to clean up, EPA registered disinfectant, put it in a bag, put it in another bag, slap a biohazard sticker on there, and then dispose of it. Adverse or allergic reactions. So signs and symptoms of an adverse reaction is swelling of the eyelid or the whites appear red and feel irritated. Correct action. If the eyelids appear extremely swollen, advise them to seek a physician. So we are lash technicians, we are not doctors. So if it's something that's really crazy, first things first is you're gonna tell them to seek a physician before removing the lashes. Like I said, in the many, many years that we've been in the industry, only one person has ever really had an adverse reaction. Most of it is due to placement, isolation, and applying the glucose. Consultation and analysis, intake form. So again, I sent you guys a copy of the consent form, but feel free to kind of create your own to get a little bit of background about your clients, okay? Contraindictions. So they are factors that prohibit a treatment due to a condition or any type of illness or injury. Basically what a contraindiction is, if somebody comes in and they do have a sty or they have open sores on their eyes and you're not comfortable working on them, that is okay. You can say, hey, you know what, I think my services would have a better result if we waited until that healed up. You can say it in a very tactful way, right? You don't have to be like, ooh, what is that? You might think it, but don't say it. But yeah, so, and definitely, because the reason being is if somebody is starting to have a sty and you don't see it, and then they get one, it's gonna be your fault. Or whatever condition they have, if that irritation spreads and you did their lashes, it's gonna be your fault. Protect yourself first. Not all money is good money. Record keeping. Remember, you ladies are gonna be busy. Lashing is busy. It makes a lot of money. And with eye design, different lash lengths, different hybrid, volume, all those things, it's really good to keep track of what services people get. I might not want the same lashes that Olivia wants, but when I come in as a client, I don't know what I have. I don't know I have 9s, 13s, I don't know any of that. So record keeping is very, very important. Professional ethics. Ethics are the moral principles by which we live and work. Just be a good person. I think that's pretty much easy to say. Personal hygiene, daily maintenance of cleanliness and healthfulness through certain sanitary practices. Remember, you're working very closely with people, and just make sure you're keeping yourself up, okay? Eyelash evaluation, so you always want to evaluate their eye and eye area to make sure there are no conditions, eye condition sensitivities or visible redness, especially no swelling, no itching or crusting. Skin analysis, it's good to know kind of what type of skin they have, just for retention purposes even. It's good to know because if clients have oilier skin, they might not retain as well, so it's always a good idea to figure out what you're working with before you start working, okay? Eye shapes and designs. So for a larger, more open-eyed look, use the longest extension to fill in the center and not so much at the ends. That's where you're gonna go with like cat eye. Back in the day, there was not a lot of resources for eye shape designs. Now you go on Pinterest, you go on Instagram, you go anywhere, you can find different eye maps, right? And do your research. Do your research, and I feel like if you find a good design, sell the crap out of it. Like a lot of people will like, you know what, this looks super cute, like here's some pictures in my portfolio, and then just keep on working with the eye design. But there's many out there, okay? Anatomy, physiology, and disorders of the eye. Again, when you see a client for the first time, you want to assess the entire area, the health of the entire area. The 3 eyelash growth cycles, anagen, catagen, and telogen stage. I only remember it by ACT. That is the best way to remember the order. ACT, okay? Eyelash application and removal. So you know everything that you need to use for an application. You know what you need for removal. Eyelash extension application. So when you are applying an lash extension, you're applying 1 lash to 1 hair 1 millimeter away from the eye. 1, 1, 1. The next set of numbers, when you go into under eye gel pads, you're applying 2 gel pads, 2 eyes, 2 millimeters. Okay? So 1, 1, 1 for lash extension, 2, 2, 2 under eye gel pads. Isolation and separation. So extensions must only be applied to 1 natural lash. Properly isolating the natural hair to get extended is key. During application, check your work numerous times. Isolation is when you first open that window and you're isolating that single lash. Separation is when you're working and you're going through and you're separating, okay? You're gonna see that you are isolating each individual eye. That's isolation.
Is the separation with when you use both tweezers?
You could use tweezers, but I think a lot of times you just take the,
Just a mascara one?
yeah, and just kind of clean through as you're working,
Oh.
okay? You would never want it where you're like putting all these lashes on beautifully and all of a sudden they're stuck, like they wake up and they're stuck, and because you haven't been separating as you've been working. Okay? So we talked about removal, and I always get this word wrong, but cyanocrylate is the main ingredient in most eyelash extension adhesives. So I always remember this because the word cyan, the color, I love blue, but the word cyan is in it, cyanocrylate, and that is a synthetic, okay? Then the remover is a liquid or gel that dissolves the eyelash adhesive.